call to order this meeting of the City of Bloomington Plan Commission for April 13th, 2020. Obviously, this is not a standard meeting. This is going to be a little bit different. And so I'll just beg for a little bit of patience with everyone, particularly those who may be joining us from the public. This is going to be different every step of the way, but we're going to do our best to make sure that we keep it orderly and that we give everyone a chance to be heard as we would at any other public meeting. So the first thing I want to make sure everyone understands is how you can raise your hand. Most of us are not sharing video here, but at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there should be a little, in the bottom menu, you should see a series of options. One of them that shows the participants. Looks like right now there's 22 participants. If you click that button, you get a list of the participants. And at the bottom of that window, there's a little button. It's 3 buttons: invite, mute me, and then one that says raise hand. So there's going to be a few points during the meeting where we're going to ask for people to raise their hand. If you click that raise hand button, that's how Jackie will know to unmute you. So when we go to comments or questions from commissioners, if you have a comment or a question, raise your hand. If you're a member of the public, when we get to the point in the meeting where we ask for public comment, you can click that button to raise your hand to indicate you'd like to give comment. We'll be doing there's 2 ways to comment. One is if you're here in the meeting, as I just mentioned, to raise your hand and speak directly. The other is we're also streaming live on Facebook, and so we'll also be going to taking public comments from that live feed on Facebook. So Jackie will read any comments that are made on Facebook when we get to the public comment section as well. So with that being said, any questions just about that logistically before we kick things off? If so, just raise your hand. All right, great. Well, typically we start with a roll call. I'm not sure if that's entirely necessary since we've got everyone's, the roles kind of on the screen already, but just maybe for the sake of normalcy, Jackie, do we want to do a roll call?
Yeah, let me go ahead and unmute Des here, and then Desiree, can you go ahead and give me just a second?
Sure. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
Okay, Des, go ahead.
All right. Burrell?
Here.
Kate?
Here.
Herrera?
Here.
Kinsey?
Here.
Schonkweiler? Sandberg?
Here.
St. John?
Here.
Whistler?
Here.
All right.
Okay, great. Give me just one sec. Okay, Brad, go ahead.
All right. We do have some minutes to be approved. We have minutes from the March 2020 meeting. Are there any questions or corrections to those minutes from commissioners? All right. Well, if not, then I think we would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve the March minutes. Second.
Okay, just
Okay,
a
we have,
sec. Yeah, motion in a second. Okay. Okay, Des, go ahead.
All right. And things are just a little different. So I want to confirm that was Kinsey who motioned and Burrell who seconded.
Yes, correct.
Great. All right. Whistler?
yes.
Sandberg?
Yes.
St. John?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Kinsey?
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Herrera,
Yes. Yes.
Schockweiler.
Yes.
All right, great, guys.
Okay, just a sec.
Approved.
Okay, Brad,
Let's
go
move
ahead.
on then. Let's move on then
Yep.
to reports, resolutions, and communications. So
Great.
I think back to you, Jackie.
Yep. So we have today for you an update on the administrative manual. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. We have completed a draft of the administrative manual, which is required for the adoption of the conversion map. So that is now located on the UDO website in the February to May section. The link to that document, which was emailed to you guys just a little while ago, an hour and a half ago or so. And this is not a document that this body needs to vote on, but it is a companion document to the UDO. So we wanted to make sure that you got to see it and announce here at the meeting where it is located. It will go to council. And again, they actually also won't be officially voting on adoption of it, but in the draft UDO, there was a requirement that it be completed by the time they vote on the conversion map. So basically what it is guidelines for how to file petitions and how our boards and commissions run, and other specifications and things like that that maybe don't necessarily need to be in the actual UDO, but need to be available for those who are going to be doing development in town. So that is available online, and if you all have any questions, you can feel free to let us know about that. That's all I've got.
Great. Thank you. Any other reports or resolutions or communications from other staff?
None from us, no.
Any reports from other commissioners? Okay, well then we will move on. We have on the agenda tonight, we've got the consent agenda and then two petitions. So let's start with the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda tonight. That's UV-08-20. This is the Bloomington Housing Authority request for use variance to allow a child daycare center and 3 multifamily residential units in a 4,970 square foot building at 1020 North Monroe Street. Is there any commissioner that would like to see that removed from the consent agenda and receive a full hearing? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on the consent agenda? Jackie, will you, I'm assuming you'll let me know if anyone from the Facebook feed.
Yes, let me just
comment.
verify that real fast. But no, I don't see anything. Just a sec.
Okay.
To make sure I have it loaded. Nope, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing on Facebook.
Well, all right then. Is there any final comment or discussion before or a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve item UV-0820, the Bloomington Housing Authority for consent agenda approval.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Let's call the roll.
Schockweiler,
Yes.
St. John,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Herrera,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Okay, so the consent agenda is approved. We now have petitions for hearing. UV-06-20 and SP-07-20. So first up, we're going to do UV-06-20, Bobby J. Staggs. This is a request for use variance to allow for expansion of a multifamily use in the residential single-family zoning district at 1414 West Arlington Road. And we have the case manager, Keegan Gulick, to present.
Great,
Yes.
thanks. Hey, Keegan, I'm going to mute everybody and then I'll turn you back on just a sec.
All right.
Okay, Keegan, go
All
ahead.
All right, thank you. So let me just get my PowerPoint here. Okay. So, like you said, this is for case number UV-06-20 for the property located at 1414 West Arlington Road. The petitioner is requesting a use variance to allow for the expansion of a multifamily use in the residential single-family zoning district. This request would require a recommendation based on the comprehensive plan to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So here's just the overview of the property, approximately 2.57 acres, currently zoned residential single-family. And just to clarify, oh, sorry guys, just to clarify, it's that one in the middle there with the 3 units on it. It's currently zoned residential single-family. The comp plan designates it as neighborhood residential. The existing land use on the property is multifamily, and the proposed is expanding the multifamily use. The surrounding land uses are single family to the north and west, multifamily to the east, and single family and multifamily to the south. The petitioner, like I already said, is requesting the expansion of the multifamily use. And here is the site plan for what they're requesting. They're proposing to construct a 32-foot by 52-foot attached garage connected to one of the single-family residences. The garage would be for the stated purpose of parking and storage. The UDO classifies this use as multifamily because of multiple units on the parcel, and this property is lawful non-conforming as a result. Multifamily is not a permitted use in the residential single-family zoning district, and therefore needs a use variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow for the expansion of a non-conforming use. Strict application of the UDO would allow this property to continue as it is as a lawful non-conforming use and site, but would prohibit the desired addition to the property. To date, one adjacent property owner has contacted the Planning and Transportation Department to voice their opposition to the variance. Onto the comprehensive plan for the neighborhood residential zoning district. The intent of this district is to protect the integrity and homogeneity of existing neighborhoods while also allowing for low intensity development. For guidance on land use approvals in this district, the comp plan states new and redevelopment activity for this district is mostly limited to remodeling existing or constructing new single-family residences. This petition involves the expansion of a multifamily use, which would be in conflict with the goals of the comprehensive plan. It also goes on to state that for larger tracts of land, single-family, attached single-family, and multifamily uses may be appropriate. This property is multifamily because it has 3 single-family residences on a single lot. The size of the lot is not out of character with other single-family uses in the area. While the site can continue to exist as multifamily, expanding the use would not be consistent with the goals of the neighborhood residential district. For lawful non-conforming uses, the UDO does provide several provisions on lawful non-conforming uses and sites, and for guidance for the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals. Staff believes that the petitioner's proposal does not meet the requirements of the UDO. The first one, it addresses uses rendered non-conforming, which is what this use would be. I'll just go over it real quick. When a use was lawfully existing as a permitted use on the effective date of the UDO, and this UDO or any amendment thereto no longer classifies such as a permitted use in the zoning district that is located in, uses shall be deemed lawful non-conforming and subject to the provisions under Chapter 20-.08, non-conforming lots, sites, structures, and uses. And it goes on in that chapter to say that a lawful non-conforming use shall not be intensified, expanded, enlarged, extended, or relocated to another portion of the lot. And so that's the part of the UDO that the proposal would be not consistent with. In addition to that, since it's also a non-conforming site, expanding the site would trigger limited compliance with the UDO. So they would have to bring it closer to compliance with the UDO if the use variance were to be granted. So they would have to meet the following conditions. They would have to pave any substandard parking surfaces, striping of those parking surfaces, pedestrian facilities. So they would have to build a 5-foot wide sidewalk along West Arlington Road. And there would also be landscaping requirements that would be based on the number of parking spaces, as well as the size of the parcel. And that's something that the petitioner could work with staff to make a landscape plan for. So the department finds that the proposed use does interfere with the intents of the comprehensive plan and the UDO. While at one time the site may have been permitted to construct 3 separate units on one lot, changes in the zoning code over time has rendered the use to be a lawful non-conforming use, as it is currently zoned residential single family. So since the site is considered to be a lawful non-conforming use, it can exist as such in perpetuity, but however, the proposed addition would expand a lawful non-conforming use, which is prohibited by the UDO. While a use variance would allow for the expansion, the request is not found to be consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan. So the department recommends that the Planning Commission forwards petition UV-06-20 to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a recommendation for denial. And I can take any questions as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Keegan. We're gonna wait just a second here. The petitioner for this petition is having a hard time. She can't hear. So she has messaged me. Obviously, she knows what's happening with the petition, but I want to check with Mr. Rooker here on what we need to do. Hey, Mike, are you there?
I am, yes.
Hi. Okay, so I guess what would the suggestion be? So hold on, let's see.
We've done some
They are
work-
on, they can see, but they can't hear anything, and she can't figure out why.
Okay, so I am not an IT specialist,
I
unfortunately.
know, sorry.
So I probably
I-
can't figure out what precisely is happening with her computer. I know that we've had a couple of situations like this before, and we've had some pretty, I don't know, I'm assuming a lot of us have done Zoom meetings. We've done some things where somebody has called someone's cell phone and talked through the cell phone. That's pretty, it's not an ideal situation at all.
I believe do we have a dial-in
You're
number?
unmuted, Brad, yeah.
Is there a
We
dial-in number?
do
for
have a
this?
dial-in number.
There should be.
Yeah, I tried to, no, hold on. Yeah, I tried to, yes, give her instructions on how to find the specific dial-in number at the bottom for her account, but she can't find it. Hold on.
Let's see. Maybe we can just read it.
Yeah,
here.
let me give her the one from the, hold on.
She can't hear.
No, she cannot. So I'm just messaging her. I'll send her one of these numbers and see if she can call in. Sorry about this, just a second.
No worries. And this is Jackie Staggs that we're trying to
Yes.
connect with here? Okay. And I can see that Jackie's here in the
Yeah, she is
meeting.
here. She just can't hear anything.
And she's unmuted, right? So I don't
Correct.
think we can hear.
No,
her
she
either.
has, I don't, yeah, I'm sorry. She does not have,
Doesn't have a mic.
she doesn't have a mic, I don't think.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
that.
So yeah, I think the best option would be if she could maybe call in, that would probably be the best bet.
Right, okay.
Maybe-
Would you like to move on to the next and come back to this?
Let me just, do you have the number handy? I can.
Yeah, I sent
find
it to
here
her.
Probably. Oh, okay.
I messaged it to her, yeah.
Do you mind just reading it out loud, Jackie, just in case anyone
Oh,
else
yes.
is going to having a similar
Sure.
problem?
Yeah, just a second. It's 1-929-205-6099. And then the this meeting, the ID is 324147883. Hold on just a sec. Yeah. Okay, Beth, go ahead.
So I did have a couple of questions, but I wasn't sure now, are we postponing consideration of this until?
I think maybe we should wait until we can confirm whether or not she can get in. I mean, that would be, Mike, do you think, I mean, I feel like that would be prudent, but.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we have a chance to hear from the petitioner
'cause
before
we're-
we really go.
Denial, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
So-
fine. I'll hold on to questions. One thing I was going to suggest, although if she doesn't have a mic showing up, maybe this wouldn't work, but to just run through the Zoom diagnostics on her computer, because she may have other options to
Yeah.
get to a speaker or a mic that works.
Jackie, are you there? Let's see. I got a new person, but now they're gone. Let's see. Hold on. Unmute. Huh. Okay, we got joined by Furlough Wealth Management Group, but it won't let me unmute it. So they must have muted themselves. Okay, well, I sent her the information and I haven't heard back yet. So do you want to, Brad, do you want to wait a minute or do you want to,
Let's give one more minute here, and
Okay.
if she's unable to join, then what we can do is just move on to the next item on the agenda and come back. I hate for her to have to wait for that entire deliberation, but I think somebody's going to be waiting no matter how we proceed here. So let's
right, let's see, we got another one here. See if that one works.
we do have someone join
Yep.
by
Hello?
telephone.
Yeah.
Jackie, this is
Sure.
Scott. I'm trying to help you out.
Okay.
I think the call-in number works. She needs to hit the pound sign again because it's asking for a person ID. And if you just do pound, it should get her through.
Okay, hold on just a sec. There's another one. Jackie, is that you?
We're here. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Can you hear
Yeah,
us?
this is Jackie and yes.
Thank you so much. Sorry for that.
No, thank you. Sorry. We've been trying.
No, you're
since-
fine. I know. Sorry. Okay. Hey, Keegan, can you,
Yes.
I think it would be beneficial if no one minds if Keegan just does a brief overview again so that they can understand what he has said to you all before we move on to questions. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, I
Yes.
think that makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody and then unmute Keegan. Just a second. Okay, Keegan, an abridged version would be great, please.
Yes. Let me just go back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you.
No worries. Just a moment.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, so just to briefly touch on, go over this again. This is the property. Here's the overview of the property. Zones residential single family. It is currently a multifamily use. They're proposing to expand the multifamily use. Multifamily is not a permitted use in the residential single family zoning district, hence the need for the use variance. Here's their site plan that they submitted to us. This garage right here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but that is what they're proposing for the stated use of parking and storage. For the comprehensive plan, This area is designated as neighborhood residential, which on the screen you can see basically our takeaways from the neighborhood residential district. We found that the request is not consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan. And in addition to that, there is also the issue with the UDO and lawful non-conforming uses. The UDO prohibits expansion of lawful non-conforming uses, which is why we needed the use variance. And in addition to being a non-conforming use, it is also a non-conforming site. So if a use variance was granted, they would have to come into limited compliance with the UDO. And that would include these following conditions: paving of parking surfaces, striping, adding a sidewalk along Arlington Road, and also landscaping requirements, which would be based on the number of parking spaces, as well as like the size of the lot, and et cetera. So since the petition, the UDO would allow this property to continue as it is, as a lawful non-conforming use, but it does prohibit the expansion of non-conforming uses. In addition to that, we also found that the request was not consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan. So based off of those findings, staff recommends that the Plan Commission forward petition UV-06-20 to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a recommendation for denial. And that's, I think I covered everything, but I can also answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Keegan. So now we will move on to the petitioner for their own presentation. So Jackie, thank you for joining us. Anything that you would like to add?
Okay, okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
this is Jackie. I am, Joe Staggs and I are the owners of this property. And I guess I just can't understand. We've lived here for 40 years and I am 72, he's 74. I have a lot of physical issues. You know, I've had open heart surgery, bypass, a lot of different things. And I'm having a hard time walking and getting out to put my car, you know, do anything with my car. And that's why we were wanting something where we can put our cars and our lawnmowers and different things inside of something so that it will be easier for us. As it is now, it's getting harder and harder. And I guess I just can't understand what is the problem with that. You know, you're putting it's more of a burden on us as we get older and older. Can you answer me? You know, I know all the rules and everything, but I just don't understand why this is not being granted. With everything that you're saying, we agreed to do those things, but you're still telling us you're going to ask for a denial. Can you give me any more information?
Well, hopefully, as we get into some questions here, we'll be able to get some more context for you. I think if you don't have anything else more to add at this point, we will move to questions from commissioners for staff or for the petitioner, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little more information here. Are there any commissioners that have a question that they'd like to ask? Just click that raise hand button if you do.
Yep, it looks like Beth is up first. Let me make sure I unmute her. Keeps changing on me, just a sec. Okay, Beth, you should be set to go.
Yeah, thank you. So a quick question for Keegan. You mentioned that there was a neighbor who had registered opposition to this. I didn't see anything in the packet. Can you explain what the nature of the opposition was? And then I have another question after that, but I just wanted to first get a sense of what that was.
Yeah, it was, they didn't say they didn't give a name, but it was someone they came into the planning department because they had received the notice. And so they just expressed that, you know, they didn't see why that this was needed, basically. And, you know, they didn't give a much more detailed than that, but that was their, about the extent of their, opposition. I don't know if Jackie, if you had anything to add to that. It was just someone that had come into the office after they
Yeah.
this.
I don't think so. Basically, so, we send letters within 300 feet of the petition site. And so this person was a property owner within that boundary and wanted to come in and say that they didn't think that the property should be expanded more. And that was basically the gist of their comments.
Okay. And then, can I just ask a quick follow-up? I'm sorry, I didn't know if I just cut off someone else.
No, keep going, Beth.
Oh, okay. So if this were a single home existing on this property and the other two buildings weren't on it, would there be any issue with being able to build this garage?
I don't believe so. I mean, and Jackie, maybe you can clarify this, but my understanding is that if this was, just one home on one lot, I don't think there would be an issue. But I guess I would have to, see the site plan. But yeah.
Right. So it would depend on the size of the lot. It's a fairly substantial addition. It's about the size of a 4-car garage, I believe. I'm not positive. Initially, they requested an detached structure, and that they would not have been allowed to do even if it was single because it was too large. So then they proposed to attach it. And so depending on the size of the surrounding lot and, impervious surface coverage, they would be able to do an addition. Just, I'm not sure if they would be able to do one of this size.
Okay, but some, just not necessarily of the size.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Potentially, depending.
Yeah. And I don't know if from the petitioner standpoint, that's something size-wise that they'd be, able to or willing to continue to negotiate with staff. The reason I ask is because when I read through this, it did sort of strike me a little bit as a technical thing. I was trying to figure out what the substantive concern would be given the surrounding nature of the property, which includes some multi-residential, and just thinking that if this was the kind of thing, not, in terms of the size, but just the fact of being able to build onto that home, a garage, if it were a single family structure. I was trying to get a feel for whether there's a real substantive concern generated with this building. Can you help me out there?
Sure. So I think the general, Keegan, if you don't mind, I think the general idea is that this is a non-conforming use. There's more than one residential unit on this lot. It's not zoned for that. It can go, it's lawful non-conforming. It can keep going on in that way in perpetuity. They can do regular maintenance. There's nothing stopping them from that. But to expand and further kind of legitimize this use that we as a community have identified as something we don't want in this area is something that we try to avoid. So the comprehensive plan designation here is also single family. There's not an intention to intensify residential units along this part of Arlington. So we run into, weighing whether or not, it might kind of seem like it's a little bit inconsequential to let a house, have a garage. That's pretty standard, but it's really more about intensifying and expanding a use that we have very recently said we're not sure is appropriate now or into the future. So that's kind of where we came down on the denial recommendation.
Yeah. Proving this would not do anything for any kind of future desire to expand anything else though, right? This is a standalone request in that regard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
Jillian, you're up next. Is that okay, Brad?
Yeah, I'll just let you run with it since you've got.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, okay. Hold on. Okay, Jillian, you're up.
Thank you. So my question is, one, if there's an existing garage on the property, or if there's no garage for this particular family residence.
I believe for this particular house that they were adding to, it did not look like there was an existing garage. Whether or not the other houses on the lot had garages, I couldn't tell from the aerial. It looked like maybe one of them did, but perhaps the petitioner could speak to that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear from the petitioner.
Jackie, can you tell us if there are other garages on the lot? Let me make sure you're unmuted. I think you are. Jackie, sorry, can you go ahead and tell us if there are other garages on the lot?
There are no garages for any home. And may I speak something else?
If it's related to that, yes.
Yeah, if it's related to that, go ahead. If not, you'll have a chance to add anything to your comments once we're done with the questions here. But if it's related to the question about garages, go ahead and answer it now.
Okay, yes, no, this is the only garage. There are 3 houses, but our family lives in the 3 houses. My daughter lives in one, my son lives in one, and we live in one. They have no garages and we have none. That's why we were looking for one. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Jillian,
I had one other,
else?
yeah, I had one other kind of more technical procedural question, Jackie and Keegan. The BZA would have, I'm just trying to think about what the BZA would have different grounds to approve this as a variance. I mean, they could, our purview is around assuring that proposals conform to the comprehensive plan. And I understand, our level of approval, but the BZA could approve this or deny it or act on it based on their consideration of a variance in a way that's different. And I'm trying to distinguish the difference here.
Jackie.
Okay, so sure, yeah. So they have more findings than you do. So one of the things that they will look at is the comprehensive plan, but they also have to look at whether or not the request is injurious to the surrounding property owners or the community as a whole. And the big one, which makes use variances very difficult, is that they have to determine that the property is so unique that the rules are in fact creating a hardship for use of the property. So that is not something you all consider, but that is something that they will have to look at, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, that helps.
Okay, I believe.
Oh, you done, Jillian?
Other hand I see raised.
Thank you.
Great. Yep, here goes Flavia. Hold on, sorry. Okay, Flavia, you're up.
Okay. My question is, actually, I went on the GIS and I answered my own question. I wanted to know if this, so there are 3 residences, 3 homes in one plat, and
Yes.
1 single owner.
I believe
Yes.
so, yes. Yes.
So this is 1 owner owns 3 houses.
Correct.
Correct. Here's a question. Can the owner subdivide this lot, since it's 2 acres, 2.57? Can they subdivide the lot and make a lot with just the house of Mrs. Staggs? And if that is allowed, can they add a garage to that lot? Detached.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry, yes. They do not have, it's difficult because they have enough land to create 3 separate lots, but the orientation of the houses makes it impossible to create 3 lots that meet the zoning code as far as design of them. For example, because like the house in the back wouldn't have any frontage, so you have to have frontage when you're creating a new lot. So we did look at that first as a possibility.
Okay.
So yeah, we do not think that they would be able to actually subdivide it and put them each on their own lot. If they would have been able to do that, then yes, they could have subdivided and added on to the house if it ended up being on its own parcel.
Okay, I'm just looking at different ideas on how it is that we can be compliant and yet be able to help the Staggs in a situation.
Okay, was that the end of your questions?
Yes, yes,
Flavia?
thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay,
I think Susan had a question.
You're up, Susan.
Thank you. My question has to do with the available parking around the home in question. And of course, I understand our constraints here, but I'm also wondering about the BZA. Do they have anything that they can look at with respect to aging in place and making sure that the residents of this particular seems to be multifamily, but it's the same family in a sense, if there are any amenities or any considerations that could be made for active living and aging in place with respect to having a garage and an ability to get in and out of the house from a garage safely without slipping and falling in the winter. Any consideration at all that could be helpful?
Yes, I mean, I do think they will consider that. They have considered that for other variance requests. It's just difficult. Most variances that they see are development standards variance, and the thresholds are much lower so than a use variance. So I don't know if that will be able to get them to a recommendation or get them to an approval, but I'm sure that that is something they will discuss because they have in the past. As we've seen other variances come up where people are, wanting to add first floor bathrooms, but they don't have the space on the lot and those types of things.
Mm-hmm. And then back to the first question, parking. Where are the residents currently parking and what proximity to their front door or their side door?
Let me unmute Jackie here and see if she can. Oh, I think she's actually unmuted. Jackie, can you answer that question?
Yes, we have across our yard, along the driveway, we have driving there, and we had started putting a driveway in, hoping we would be able to get the barn or whatever it is up. But that's all we have. You have to walk out and go across the yard to get to the cars, and we've been doing that. About 150 feet.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Susan.
Looks like Israel had a question.
Yeah, let's see if I can.
Yeah, I have
Okay,
a
Israel,
question,
you're up.
and it's related to the first question regarding the person who opposes. I think it's someone living around the property. So this was, as far as I understood, just an oral complaint. It wasn't a written complaint, and there wasn't any details about how it might affect the person's property, right? It doesn't detail in which way or why, the reasons why this person opposes this proposal.
That's correct. We did not get a lot of detail from the person on why they were opposed to it, other than for the reasons we stated, that they didn't feel like they wanted to see an expansion of that on this site.
Okay. I believe Craig has a question.
Hey, Craig.
Hi, this is more for Keegan and Jackie. There was a comment there about maybe a smaller garage. This one looks to be fairly big at 30 some by 50 some, which is, indicated about a 4-car garage. would they be able to build a 1 or 2 car garage and would that be allowed?
Well, since this is, the non-conforming use, really it was any expansion is what triggered the need for the use variance and and also the limited compliance and such. So I think, even if it was a smaller garage, it would still be, in this situation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that. It seems like that really is the issue here, right? That this is expansion of a non-conforming use. But really, the non-conforming use is that it's multifamily, and we're not expanding the use in the sense of adding any additional multifamily units. So I guess my question would be, maybe this is a question for legal, what defines an expansion of a non-conforming use?
I think I unmuted you, Mike. Hold on a second.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
And Jackie, I don't know if you and Keegan want to try to address that, or if you want me to
Sure.
jump in. But
No, that's fine. So the expansion, enlargement, creating new area where a use that is already ongoing, that is non-conforming, can be relocated into. So this would be more space that would go as supportive space of this multifamily use. So basically any expansion that they would do here would be an expansion of the multifamily use. If right now they're wanting to use it as a garage, and that's great, but there would be no reason that they couldn't do an interior remodel and turn it into 6 more bedrooms or a kitchen or a living room or whatever. It's expanding the use. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, is that true? Because as a if it is a non-conforming use, could they add another unit now?
No, not another unit,
No.
but they could add more living space with a use variance. I guess I'm saying it is an expansion. I think what you're saying is that because it's a garage and not another unit, is that actually an expansion? But
Yeah, that's my question is it,
yeah.
I think you answered it a little bit ago. Were you reading directly from the code when you?
I was not, but I can look it up.
Okay.
And there are cases on expansion of non-conforming uses. You can imagine something that would be so de minimis that it wouldn't qualify, but that's not what we have here.
So you're saying though that allowing this as a use variance gives them essentially the right to add as many units as they want up to what the code allows in that zone?
No, sorry.
So what would give them the
all.
right then to convert the garage to another unit? I don't see how that follows.
Yeah, not a unit, just more living space. I was making the differentiation between a garage and like a living room. If they decide that I think it would look more clear cut, and maybe it wouldn't, but I think it would look more clear cut to everyone if they were like adding a bedroom or, if it wasn't a garage, that yes,
Sure.
this is expanding the use, but we see the garage as the same thing.
I get that. I guess what I'm wondering, do I have to see it that way? Is it that clear cut in the code, or is this is this an interpretation of the code?
Keegan, can you go to your slide that you have about the non-conforming stuff? Sure. I just don't remember what's on there.
Yeah, let me just one moment. I believe, and this was just taken just directly from the code.
Right. I just couldn't remember what part you had on there.
And I think the part that would be consequential to this is, the intensified, expanded, enlarged, extent, et cetera, was what, what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Brad, I'm just looking for a particular thing in here. Yeah, so the reference that Keegan has there from 2008-050, though it does include the occupancy clause, it's just that any lawful non-conforming use shall not be intensified, expanded, enlarged, extended, or relocated to another portion of the lot or structure. And that is as clear as the code gets about that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's, I guess you got to really parse words here. Is you know, what is the use, right? Does that mean anything on the property, or the use of the property that's non-conforming?
So I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question. Yeah, but I mean, we see the use as one thing. So it's multifamily because the code is very clear that if you are single family, you have one unit on a lot. So even though these look like 3 single family units, because they're on one lot, they are multifamily per the definitions of code. And then we also see development characteristics of a lot as different, as non-conforming, but that's different from the use. Like it doesn't meet code because it doesn't meet use requirements, but it also doesn't meet code because it doesn't meet development standards requirements of the multifamily use that it is.
Yeah, I guess here's maybe another question. Another way to phrase this would be, you know, how is adding the garage different from, say, paving the parking? I mean, that's also intensifying the use, but that's something that we not only would allow, but we would require.
But we're only going to require it if they get a use variance and we're legitimizing their multifamily use. And I think that expanding a building that currently exists as multifamily is pretty clear that, like, what else would that be if it wasn't multifamily? You're extending the use that is within that building by making the building bigger. But yeah, I'm not, sorry. I mean, I'm following, but I'm not following.
I think it's
part of the question.
Well, I guess I'm getting into comments here instead of questions, so apologies for that. But yeah, it just seems like it's hard to make the case that you're expanding the multifamily use when the only thing that's expanding is the primary residence here. I mean, I think even if we were talking about expanding a rental unit on the property, that would clearly be expanding the use, right? If you're expanding one of the rental units, but we're talking about.
But as far as the code is concerned, the code doesn't, care, I don't think, who lives in this house. So you're calling it the primary structure, but I mean, it isn't. So they're all equal. They're 3 houses. Like if they were apartment buildings and they wanted to do an addition to one of the buildings, then that would, even if it wasn't an entirely new unit, that would clearly be expansion of multifamily. And that is the same as what's happening here, because these 3 units together create a site that has multifamily. There is no single family. There's no primary unit. It's one little compound with 3 units on it. Is how we are seeing it. Yeah.
Let me ask just one more question,
Sure.
and then we'll let others get back. And I know there's some more questions here coming. So you mentioned that it would be impossible to subdivide into 3 lots because the house in the back wouldn't have frontage. Is it possible to subdivide into 2 lots and make one that remains as a non-conforming use with the 2 rental units on it, and one that with this house alone?
I don't think so, but I guess that would be something I would need to talk to Mr. Rooker about, because when we would not want to be, again, in the business of legitimizing a non-conforming use. So even though it is non-conforming now, if we went through the subdivision process and the new second lot with 2 houses on it would be new, it'd be brand new, and we would be creating it with a use that was non-conforming. My inclination is that we would not be able to do that, but I would have to check with legal about that. And I don't know if that's something Mike can answer like just off the cuff, but if they wanted to do that, that would be my main question. Is that, again, our concern is once we as a community have identified where we want uses to be, then we as Planning and Transportation Department need to be careful what we're legitimizing that is just not in line with those documents, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If that were the proposal that were on the table, we would have to talk about it some more. Jackie, I think is exactly right.
So that would be something that could be pursued, I guess. And I guess my last question is, could you not also, as a last resort, just pursue a rezone to make this multifamily?
Right, yes. So the other option and the only option that will be in place after Wednesday, if something like this comes up, because we will no longer have use variances in our UDO as of the end of this week, will be a rezone request. So rezones obviously need to also meet the comprehensive plan. So a rezone of this parcel would have, a rezone request for this parcel would have generated the same recommendation from the department based on the reasons we've recommended denial for your use variance, your comprehensive plan consideration, because this area is supposed to be single family primarily.
Okay. That's it for me. I think there are several other commissioners that have questions.
Beth, I'm going to go to you first.
Okay, thanks. I just want to better understand why we're considering this if we're not able to recommend a variance to what is in the code, unless I'm missing something. So aren't we considering this because we are making a recommendation as to whether or not to have a variance granted for either this proposed garage or potentially something smaller than that? In other words, if we're stuck with the language here, then it seems pointless for us to discuss this.
Right. So, yes, so anyone can apply for anything they want. We said to the petitioners at the beginning, we do not think that you meet the requirements. We don't think you can expand. They very much want to expand for the reasons that they've described. So this is their only option, basically, besides filing for and taking a rezone request to council. So yes, to us, it seems fairly cut and dry that they do not meet the requirements for recommendation approval from this body. But that is up to you all to weigh.
Okay, well, I guess that's my question to you is are we able to make a recommendation that yes, this be granted? And I have just another question is make sure I understand the scope of what that would mean. And that is whether recommendation for a use variance to enable a suitably sized garage, if you will, attached to the house, which would meet the needs of the Staggs, whether that carries with it any longer term or different significance for later building. And it sounded like not in terms of any literally new project. Jackie, I think you mentioned maybe doing some remodel where it suddenly becomes a bedroom as opposed to a garage or something like that. But it doesn't have any, if you will, precedential effect, does it, in terms of anything else that would happen with this property in the future would still end up coming back around for another use variance if another building were going to be built on it. Am I right about that?
You are right in that this does not set precedent for any lots, including this one. So whatever if the BZA were to grant the use variance, they could limit it however they wanted to. So they could say, we will grant the use variance for a maximum of 2-car garage size, you know, and do that if they want to. Or we can grant the use variance for garage use only, you know, whatever they end up feeling is appropriate. The kicker, the difference here now than what has been in the past is that this is it. Like, we're not doing use variances anymore. So they can't even come back in the future and request something like this. It's just, it's not good planning practice really, and we're not doing it.
Oh no, and I get
so
that. It feels like oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's okay. So I just wanted to address, because like you're saying, you know, if they wanted to expand in the future, could they come back and ask for another one? They actually, as far as the new code is written now, they can't. So whatever they, if the BZA were to approve, then whatever was approved now would be basically the max out of whatever they're going to be able to do, unless the property gets rezoned through the new mapping.
Right. Yeah, thank you. I mean, that makes sense to me, but that sort of, in my mind, I guess, cuts in favor of trying to find a way to recommend that a garage be able to be added on here. It seems like appropriate and necessary. These people have lived in this place for a long time, and it doesn't seem, I wasn't hearing emerge a really kind of substantive harm from building, again, maybe something smaller than is proposed. But yeah, that's what I felt like I was hearing. So thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Karen, just a sec. Okay, Karen, you're up.
Hi, thank you. My question was really around what Brad was asking originally, but now includes some of what Beth just asked, because you know, you really would want the Staggs to be able to build this garage. It does sound reasonable. And yet going back to that question of, are we stuck with these rules? And Keegan, I see your slide up there on 20.08.050. But when I look at the packet, you have item A. And when I look at the packet on page 41, you actually have listed also an item C that I want to ask about. Which gets back to Brad's question and Jackie about what does it actually say? And item C on here says no building or structure shall be constructed in connection with an existing lawful non-conforming use. So is that actually saying you cannot build an additional building? Is that what we're stuck with? So that would be
I'm sorry, go ahead. You can go ahead, Keegan.
Yeah, so that's, you know, I guess, and maybe Jackie, you could clarify this, but yeah, what that is saying is that, you know, that no building or structure could be constructed, you know, even in connection to a non-conforming use. And I felt that was relevant to this particular case, but, you know, Jackie, perhaps maybe, you know, if you have any additional thoughts on that.
Sure. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Karen.
King, so can I just ask you, when you have this slide you're sharing right now on our screen, has item A, has that item C. Is there a reason you left that off the slide, or you just left it off the slide? Because to me, item C is actually like very direct compared to even item A that you have there. I mean, it says you can't build another building, and I'm asking, is that actually what we have here?
Well, I kind of saw item A as more relevant. Just because, you know, I didn't see the addition necessarily as a new structure. So that's why I didn't include it on the slide. But, you know, I do think that is still something worth, you know, considering. That's why it's in the report. But, you know, Jackie, I don't know if you would want to expand on that, or if you had any thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's that it's relevant that they're not allowed to do that. So initially, when they did apply for the accessory structure, then they weren't meeting A or C. Arguably now they're only not meeting A since they've asked for it to be attached, because they aren't asking to build a new separate structure. But either way, we would see it as an expansion. I don't know if that answers your question, Karen.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know. When I see no building or structure shall be constructed in connection with the existing use, I guess I thought that's.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Like the code just says they can't do it. So it's something that Keegan's like trying to, I think, make sure that you guys understand that they just cannot do this via the code. So the only options are to request a use variance, which then now legitimizes their use and makes these points here in 208050 not apply anymore, or request the rezone. So what they've done is go the use variance route.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see. Jillian.
I was going to ask about clause C as well, since it wasn't on the slide, and I think that's pretty direct. I presume that it's not as strong because of the attached garage. The fact that there's an attachment now, so that made it a little bit less aligned with a structure that's constructed. But to me, it seems like C is more the clause we need to continue to point to as the one that really is what's prohibiting this. And I guess I just want to go back to the BZA again, because just to, these bodies operate independent. The Plan Commission operates independent of BZA, where we have similar purview, but we are designed to act as independent bodies. And to me, it seems that we're forwarding a recommendation, whatever that might be, and BZA can still act in a different way. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. To me, it seems like this might be more appropriate even for a zoning appeals than for plan. I understand why we're seeing it, because it's a direct, it is part of a Plan Commission purview, but to me, it seems like it would be more appropriate in a BZA body decision-making. And I just want to, again, emphasize that aspect of it. And I guess my question is that right, Jackie?
Yes, okay, yeah. So I want to clarify for new commissioners and just for everybody, because it is very confusing. So a use variance is entirely the purview of the Board of Zoning Appeals. That is their decision to make. Your role is in whether or not you think that the request that they're making is in line with the goals of the comprehensive plan. So while it is useful and relevant for you to understand, for example, why they don't meet code now, I do think that that's helpful information, and it just helps you, get a more well-rounded view of the issues. Your real, very narrow focus should be on, they are asking to have a multifamily use be legitimized in this area where the comprehensive plan says X. Does that match? And then there are other, reaches you can make where you can, like we talked about, aging in place, or wanting to create more density, in general near town. I mean, there are other things that you could weigh, but the things that you should be looking at are whether or not what they're asking to be legitimized, which in this case is a multifamily use, whether or not that thing is in line with the comprehensive plan. And so we have said, because this area is designated as primarily single family, we don't think that in this location that it is in line with the comprehensive plan, and that's why we've recommended denial. And that is the entire purview of what you're supposed to be doing. But we do like to give you background information in as much detail as possible so that you can make that decision. But I mean, really, the Plan Commission's only role is to make a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals based on whether or not the use request is in line with the comprehensive plan. Do you have anything else, Jillian? Okay. Flavia?
Hi, I have some questions here. So we are calling this an attached garage, but when you look in their proposal, it says a garage and storage, 1,664 square feet, pretty large structure. And then when you read the specs of this building. It's metal. It's a metal building. This is a pole barn. This is not an attached garage like people were thinking, that it's an attached garage with a cement, poured cement and built as a stick built here. This is a pole barn. It's 32 by 52. So that changes things. I mean, I just wanted to know is this is what everybody's envisioning and the plan commission. This is not a garage where you're going to go park your car and walk up the steps to your home. This is a detached structure that it's 1,600 square feet, almost 1,700 square feet for storage of lawnmower, cars, boats, whatever you want to do. And it's quite large, which will accommodate probably the whole family's tools and everything else. So when I look at that way, the aging in place idea seems like it doesn't match with this structure. Am I reading something wrong here?
No, that's what they are requesting.
Because if you
let me unmute Jackie in case something has changed. Just a second. Jackie, do you have any other comments on kind of the style of what you're requesting?
Yes, ma'am. Let me say the word safety. We've lived here, and you were saying, I'm not sure, but we have apartment buildings in the back where the last house is on the side. There's an apartment that's on West 17th Street. They're building 150 apartments straight behind us, and we've had problems. Why we want this big pole barn is because we have had our car stolen, we have had a canoe stolen, we need something and four-wheelers stolen. We wanted something big enough to put our cars in. My husband also has a backhoe. We wanted to be able to back it in there. We wanted it safe where we can, roll down the doors. That's why it's the pole barn size. We have no intentions. I'm 74. I don't think I'm going to be having any more kids to need to build bedrooms or anything, but I'm sorry. It's more for safety. We have had people coming out of the apartments running through our yards on the weekends when they're drunk and the police are after them, and we just wanted something where we could put everything in and feel safe. So that's why the large size. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, Brad, back. Oh, Israel's got just a
Looks
second.
like Israel's got one more.
Yep.
Okay,
go ahead.
My first reading was the request being based on a health condition for both people regarding the disabilities. But what I hear now is that the health conditions are not the main points, but maybe the safety for the property, because I was about to ask regarding the language if there was this kind of request for a protection of health conditions regarding the access to the house and the PSTD situation with the other owner. So it seems that it's more based on safety than health conditions. I don't know if the petitioner could clarify this, because the statement is based more on helping both of them with access to the house and handling the wheelchair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
First of all, it is for my health. I have had problems for years now. That was the main concern. But as I was sitting here listening to everything everyone was saying, then I realized I should speak up and say something about the problems we've had with people coming in our yard. We're not young anymore, and we're just trying to make ourselves as safe as we can. and not worry. I don't know that the gentleman, I kind of take offense at that he was saying that he first thought it was for our health and now it's for something else. No, it is for our health. So I'm sorry, but it is for our health, but I just added the other as something else. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions from commissioners? All right, seeing none, I think we are ready to go to the public. Is there anyone from the public who is on the Zoom meeting who would like to speak? If so, just again, the way to indicate that you'd like to speak is to click on the participants list and then click on raise hand if you'd like to speak. And if we don't see any here in the next few seconds, Jackie, would you be able to check the Facebook feed and see if we have any questions coming from Facebook?
There's nothing on Facebook.
I suppose. Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone here on Zoom. Last call for public comment. Okay, seeing none. We are back to the commission for final comments or a motion.
And yeah, everyone's muted. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Go ahead, Israel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So the recommendation from environmental committee would be some other changes. So I wonder if the petitioner would be okay with the different changes or requests that have been done if this is approved.
Just a second. Just a second, Jackie. Okay, Jackie, go ahead.
I'm not sure I understand what he asked.
In the packet, there was a recommendation from the Environmental Commission, from the Bloomington Environmental Commission, and they basically talked about the landscape plan you'll have to submit if this were to be approved, and electric vehicle charging stations, and possibly some sort of bioretention rain gardens and solar panels on the site. He was wondering if you'd read that or if you had any thoughts on that.
No. She's saying she doesn't think so. She thinks that's kind of contraindicating each other, like the environment, and then so. I mean, we have agreed to everything that the Planning Commission with the parking spaces and all of that. We have said, absolutely, we will do whatever we needed to do. And we just actually saw this environmental page today. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you tell us your name?
My name is Shane.
Thank you. I just wanted for everybody to know.
Yes.
Okay. Is that, oh, okay, hold on just a sec. Sorry, Israel, just a second. Being funny. Okay, Israel, did you have another question?
No, that was my final.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Looks like Beth and Jillian.
I know, I'm trying. Okay, Jillian, go ahead.
Comments, hopefully?
I was prepared to make a motion unless
excellent.
Beth has a question.
Let's see what Beth says. Beth, do you have a question?
I do just, yeah, sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted. Yeah, I do have one question about the comprehensive plan. So I was looking back in the packet and it says, I'm looking at page 41, new and redevelopment activity for this district is mostly limited to remodeling existing or constructing new single-family residences. Is this not a remodel of that one residence? Is that not an interpretation of this language that will fly.
I'm sorry, will you repeat that?
Yeah, it says, I'm just looking at page 41 on the packet from the comprehensive plan where it says new and redevelopment activity for this district is mostly limited, which suggests, I guess there might be something else, but mostly limited to remodeling existing or constructing new single family residences. This is one of the reasons why I asked before, I think what I did about if this were the only building on this lot, would there be any issue with constructing this?
Oh, right, yes. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so the comprehensive plan does say that about single family uses, but this is not a single family use. So that's what I was trying to explain. I think it's hard. We look at them and they're 3 houses. So we're thinking, oh, it's 3 single families, but they're not. As well, because they're on one lot, this is a multifamily use lot. So that portion describing the expansion of single family uses does not apply.
Right. But that language plus the language after it on that same page where it talks about larger tracts of land, multifamily residential uses may be appropriate. I was looking at that and trying to figure out if it's legitimate to combine those to say, well, you know, here's a larger plot. It's got 3 buildings. It's a multifamily residential use. And redevelopment activity is effectively remodeling one of those. So I mean, I get where you're coming from. I really do. And I'm not, you know, I totally understand the point about use variances and getting out of that business altogether going forward. But that does make me wonder whether there's any flexibility here, even for us in this language. And I guess part of that goes back to what I asked before, which is to some extent, if there isn't, then I think there's not a whole lot for the commission to do, right? I mean, we're just, you know, we're just literally reading out language, but if there is, that's what I'm trying to figure out, if there is interpretive flexibility there.
Sure. So I think that would be up to you all. So we don't think so, or we would have. I mean, we understand what they want to do. I mean, we want to be sympathetic to people, and we do try to help people through the code in ways that get them where they want to be. That's what that's part of what we do. And we did not think that language gets there, but if you all do, you know, and then you present, you know, findings that describe that, then that is within your purview. That's just not what we recommended, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Jillian, I think you're still unmuted.
I was going to make a motion to accept the recommendation that we forward petition UV 0420 to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a negative recommendation.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, hold on.
Susan has seconded that motion.
Sorry. Did anyone second?
I'll second. Susan. I'll second.
Okay, just a second. Okay, sorry. Okay, Brad, I unmuted you. Brad, can I ask you, Susan seconded, can I ask a quick question? Was there an opportunity in there that we needed to give the petitioner a chance to speak again?
Yes, I think the petitioner had plenty of time remaining if she would like to make any additional.
I just didn't want to leave that out. Jackie, if you have anything else to add, please do so. You have plenty of time.
Yes, ma'am. What I wanted to say is we've lived here for 40 years. There are 3 houses on the lot. They, city rezoned us. You know, when we built these, we got the permits, we did everything, and it was okay. So that's, you know, they've changed the zoning, and now it's kind of like we're being penalized for it. But what I wanted to say is there are 3 houses, and we are the primary one. You know, all of us are as own it. My kids and I, there are three kids, and all of our names are on the property as owners. But we are the ones who paid for it and built it, but we put their names on it. But anyway, I just wanted to say, I guess I don't understand some of the terms that you were using. Like a while ago, you said something about, I thought it was like for helping someone or making it easier. Aging something, yes, and I didn't quite understand that. And I guess I'm still not understanding. If we can't do this, you're saying that this really, we have no chance of this going through you, and the only chance that we're probably going to have is trying to get it rezoned. And it just seems like it's going around and around, and we're the one who's losing. Sorry, I don't mean to say all that, but that's just what I'm getting out of this. But I think that's all that I can think of to say right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor, and I think we are back to then just final comments. Is there any final comments?
Can we get Susan here?
Call the roll.
Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. I will, because of the way the code is written and what our task is here, I will have to support this motion. That said, I am extremely sympathetic to the owners of this particular property and all the 3 homes on it. They've been there a long time, and I'm extremely sympathetic to the whole issue of aging in place and making sure that your home that you want to live in for as long as you possibly can is not only amenable to your changing physical conditions, but also people have a right to protect their property too. If they're concerned about things that have been stolen and they are looking for more security around the property, I think those are both valid reasons to do this extension of the main house. So I'm hopeful that the BZA can take another look at it and maybe make some different recommendations. I'm just feeling that in our position here on the Plan Commission, we cannot. But I did want to make it very clear that I am sympathetic to the homeowners here. Thank you.
Okay, any other final comments?
Hold on, trying to unmute Israel here. Okay, go ahead, Israel.
Right, it's not a comment. I just want to hear the motion again. I had a noise, so just to know what the motion was, please.
The motion is to forward this to the BZA with a recommendation for denial, just as it was. The motion is in line with the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Jackie, for unmuting me. This is Jillian again. I too am sympathetic to the homeowners in this case, but I feel like it's our responsibility to really assure that we're upholding what is in the Plan Commission while still considering what the petitioner is requesting. But to me, this seems like one we have to make this recommendation on. I don't see a way to legitimize the use in any other way. However, I do have some feeling that the BZA might have more allowances for approving something like this, or at least considering it. I think it does seem really contradictory for us to allow this, given it's very clear in the current UDO, as we see on these clauses in front of us, and particularly Clause C, that is just something that we can't permit. So and though, again, sympathetic to the homeowners in this situation.
Beth?
Sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm really struggling with this. I'm trying to look at this language and figure out if there's a way to read it in a way that would contemplate the ability to do this, because I share the sympathies that everyone else has expressed, and it feels like there should be a way for the Stags to be able to build this. Although I agree that the language in the UDO would seem to suggest otherwise. And it's, you know, I don't know if I feel as though there's literally no way for us to make a recommendation within the code, although I have the deepest respect for the staff's analysis here. And I realize that the staff is also trying to work with people to get them to where they want to be. And I appreciate that. But I think this is really problematic if you have someone who is living for 40 years in a location. It's been okay. They were rezoned out of their original zoning and now want to build a garage for a combination of personal health reasons and property and personal safety reasons that just seems like something they should be able to do. And so I don't know what it's going to look like in the BZA, but it's troubling and it's a little frustrating actually if there's no way to figure out a way for them to do that. So there you go.
Thanks, Beth. Anyone else? Well, I'll just add my my 2 cents, which is that if really our standard here is just to judge whether or not this is in line with the intent of the comprehensive plan, I think we can find lots of things in the comprehensive plan that would support this. Perhaps the only thing in the comprehensive plan that really that doesn't support this is the idea that multifamily should be allowed in this area. Yes, on the map, this particular parcel is shown as single family, but it is literally surrounded by multifamily. I don't think it's at all a stretch for us to say that the comprehensive plan would allow multifamily in this area. It clearly does, in the surrounding properties. And I think there are lots of other things in the comprehensive plan that would support this. So and I don't think we should expect that the BZA is going to have be able to apply some sort of broader standard. They will probably have a higher standard in my experience. So I have a real tough time supporting a negative recommendation on this one. So I'll vote no on this particular motion, but I understand it's a tough one. It's there's just a lot of technicalities in the code on this one that I understand are tough to get around. So, but I think if there's no other comments, I think we're ready for the roll to be called.
Remember Martin Luther King?
Okay, Des, go ahead.
Hey there. I had some technical difficulties, so can you tell me who made the motion and who seconded?
Sure, Jillian made the motion and Susan seconded.
All right, thank you.
Can I just clarify the vote? So if we vote yes, we're saying no to the petitioner.
Yes, if you vote yes, you are agreeing with staff and recommending a negative recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Des.
Okay, Herrera.
He's muted.
Herrera?
Yes.
Okay. St. John?
Hold on just a second.
I'll tell you what, leprosy.
Okay, try again.
Talks of leprosy.
St. John?
Yes.
Whistler?
Okay, hold on just a second. I'm just going to mute everybody and unmute the plan commissioners only. Just a moment. Okay, let's see if I can bring it up back. Just a moment. Okay, keep going, Des.
Okay, what was that, Whistler?
No.
No. Okay. Sandberg?
Yes.
Jonkweiler,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Kate,
No.
Burrell,
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'm sorry, I missed, what was Israel's vote?
I believe that was a yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so 6-2?
Yes.
That is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion passes, and we are now on to the next item on the agenda, which is SP-07-20, the Kiln Collective LLC. This is request for site plan approval to allow a two-story addition to the existing kiln building at 333 West 11th Street. I need to make a public statement of interest, conflict of interest here. I do have a direct financial interest in this project. I'm one of the partners in the project, so I will be recusing myself from the rest of this deliberation and handing things over to Vice President Kinsey. So take it away.
Okay, just a second. I'm going to mute everybody and then unmute Eric. Just a sec. Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Thank you. Can everybody see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. I just want to make sure it was working.
Yeah, thanks.
So this is a request for the Kiln Development LLC for a property that is just west of Morton and 11th Street. This is at the southeast corner of 11th and Madison. This is in the Showers Technology Park Overlay District within our commercial downtown. Surrounding properties are all within the Certified Technology Park to the southwest and east. To the north, you've got a mixed-use development. This property has the kiln building on there, which is a historic building. It's just north of the Dimensions Mill. So the building or the property currently has a one-story building that is on the site. The petitioners would like to add on a story and a half, effectively 2 stories, and just extend vertically from the existing building to add some new office space. So the property fronts on Madison Street to the west and 11th Street to the north. The proposed site plan has a large plaza area that's being created on the west side adjacent to Madison Street. There's a small sidewalk connection that extends out to 11th Street. There's a lot of grade change that happens along the 11th Street frontage for this property. There's about 7-8 feet of grade change at the north side, and then it slopes down to about level on the northwest corner. So the petitioners have moved their sidewalk connection to work around a large, tall retaining wall that runs alongside 11th Street. There's an alley that runs along the east side of this property that's been paved. The petitioners would use that alley for a parking lot. There'd be 5 parking spaces with 1 handicap accessible space adjacent to that. Or I'm sorry, 6 parking spaces with 1 handicap space. So the building would be used for commercial building tenants. The ground floor would be divided up into 5 tenant spaces. The addition, as I mentioned, would just extend vertically and go up. Here is a rendering showing that new building. Their petitioners are primarily using metal for a lot of the siding material, which you can see here. There would be some brick along the base as well. This is the rendering from the alley. And then this would be the rendering looking at it from Madison Street. So this petition, there are 3 aspects of this that are coming to the Plan Commission for their review. Those are all areas of the proposed site plan or architecture that do not meet the standards of the Unified Development Ordinance. And I'll just kind of real quickly step through those. So one of those is the height of the building. So the zoning code measures height from the lowest portion of the building to the tallest portion of the building. There is an elevator tower that will be on this building that extends up to 42 feet tall. Within the Showers Technology Park, 35 feet is your maximum height that is allowed under the current code. The new code does have for a higher height standard, but this is being reviewed obviously under our current code. which has a 35-foot height limit. So the roof tower is the primary element that extends that. The main third story reaches 38 feet, so it's about 3 feet over the height limit, but it's the elevator tower as well that extends even further. So one of the other elements that this does not meet would be the facade modulation requirements. The Unified Development Ordinance requires building facades that are more than 100 feet long to have modulation along there. As I mentioned, they are utilizing the existing footprint of the existing building and just extending vertically. The building is about 105, 107 feet long. So that additional 5-7 foot is what would require that modulation. That modulation is very difficult to work within, saving the existing building. This is a historic building. The Historic Preservation Commission reviewed what they were doing for this proposed work and gave it a certificate of appropriateness, meaning, the HPC reviewed the historic compatibility of the proposed project. So incorporating the modulation would create a lot of difficulties with saving the existing building, which is something that HPC wanted. So that is one area of this project that does not meet the zoning code, is the modulation that would be required along that west facade. The height is one of the other elements, and then the third element would be the building height step back that is required for buildings that are over 35 feet. As I mentioned, this building more or less is 38 feet tall, so it does extend above 35. So the building or the zoning code says that you have to step back that third story. So the petitioners have stepped back the third story. They stepped it back 10 feet. The UDO requires a 15-foot setback. However, the building is only 3 feet over the height limit that would kick in that step back. So the step back, or the setback of 10 feet for that third floor, although it's not 15, does help accomplish what we were requiring to do or looking to do, which would be to step back the modulation. So the low height of the building, the additional step back, in essence, creates a 2-story building from Madison, which meets the requirements or the intent of what the zoning code was trying to accomplish. So the renderings, again, they show a lot of brick, a lot of metal along the top, a lot of glass along the west side, along Madison Street. So the petitioners are trying to work with some of the industrial look of the building, as well as some modern design with the elements and the materials that they are using. So that's kind of what they're looking for. This is a rendering looking east. So you can see the dimension mill on the right side of the screen, and then the existing kiln building on the left side. In the background, you can see some of the other taller structures that are immediately adjacent to this to the east. So the building height here is certainly lower than a lot of the other structures that you see in this area, and is in keeping proportionally to the dimension mill and what we're wanting to see for this area. So staff is recommending approval of the site plan with the 5 conditions that are listed in staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, just a second. Let me unmute you, Jillian. Okay, Jillian, go ahead.
Thanks, Eric. Should we hear from the petitioner? They're present, I presume.
Yeah. Mr. Brown, are you giving the presentation?
I am. Am I still muted?
Nope, you're unmuted.
Okay.
You'll have 20 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot to add. I feel like Eric did a good job of covering most of the points. I would say that one thing Eric didn't bring up was that the new ordinance has a minimum height or a maximum height requirement of 50 feet, which is obviously more in keeping with what is going to be happening in the trades district. We had a very, I should let the commissioners know that we had a very successful round of meetings with the Historic Preservation Commission. We went through multiple design iterations in collaboration with that group to arrive at this particular design. And when we came out of it, everybody at HPC felt really good about where this building is going. I will also say that I noticed some of the comments in the staff report suggesting that we still need to calculate our impervious cover. There was a site plan issue that had that impervious cover calculation where, let's see, our pervious cover is at 26% and the requirement's 25%. So we are meeting that requirement. Other than that, perhaps Don might have something to say. Otherwise, we could go into comments and questions.
Yeah, this is Don Weiler, and I really don't have anything to add, but I'd be happy to answer any questions as you guys have them.
Great, thank you. So if there's no further petitioner comments, we're ready to move to the commissioner's questions. I don't know who's raised their hand. Anyone have questions for Eric or the petitioners? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah. Karen, go ahead.
This is for Eric. I just wanted you to clarify on the department's recommendation on the conditions of approval. Could you talk about number 2, the plaza area shall be installed as shown on the submitted site plan?
Yeah, so the reason that we put that condition on there was, and let me go back to the site plan just so I can kind of go over that. You know, one of the things that we try to accomplish with all building designs is how does this building interact with the street? Not just in how it looks, but sidewalk connections. So what I was concerned with is oftentimes we, you know, see a site plan and then, you know, as it actually gets closer to construction, they're like, you know, we just can't do this plaza, or, you know, we can't do some element of it. But that element was very specific. You know, for instance, if that plaza wasn't there, we would want another sidewalk connection besides just the one that they're showing on the north side of the building. You know, we would want something a little bit further south. So that plaza creates that open pedestrian accessibility, those pedestrian connections. So I just wanted to make sure that that kind of gets locked in and we don't lose that element. So that was basically it. You know, obviously there's a little bit of wiggle room, you know, if they need to move some things, but in essence, you know, that plaza space creates that pedestrian connectivity that we want.
Okay, thank you.
Great, it looks like Israel has a question.
Right, so my question would be with the recommendation from the Environmental Commission and regarding the green building practices, and one of the verbally statement was the possibility of adding some photovoltaic cells. So I wonder if this could change from possibly to a confirmed situation.
So, you know, that's something that we encourage. It's not a requirement. You know, they do have a flat roof, which is not ideal for placing solar cells on top of, just in terms of solar capacity gathering. So we leave that up to the petitioners. If they can incorporate that, we encourage it, but it's not a requirement.
Does the petitioner want to comment on that?
Can you hear me? Am I on? Yeah, okay. So first I want to respond to the question about the plaza. I'm wondering if maybe we can shape some language that doesn't lock us into specifically how the plaza is drawn now. I understand, and Eric and I had some discussion about the connection back to 11th Street. I'll also point out that the sidewalk going north-south between the western side of the building and Madison is also representative of the rail line that used to take the dried lumber from the kilns into the mill. And we want to extend that up to 11th Street, which would make a representational connection to the sawmill and the log storage on the north side of 11th Street. But the plaza area itself between the building and 11th Street right now is a sketch. It represents a certain degree of impervious and pervious cover, but the configuration of that plaza, it would be nice if we could maintain some flexibility there while being locked into making the pedestrian connection to 11th Street. Eric, does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, and I apologize. I should have specified more clearly on condition 2 which plaza I was looking at. So that should really be more specifically tied to the plaza on the west side of the building, not the north side. So we can certainly modify condition number 2 to say, you know, the plaza on the west side of the building should be constructed as shown on the site plan.
With some degree of flexibility, maintaining the primary intent, et cetera. I think we're on the same page here.
Okay.
Regarding the question about the solar panels, I believe it's the intent of the entire Kiln Collective to make this building as sustainable as possible. And while a flat roof is not ideal for solar panels in this region, they still do provide benefit. We had a sawtooth solar panel installation designed as we were going through the HPC review, which paralleled and pulled from design elements from the mill, the sawtooth roof. HPC didn't necessarily think that nod toward the mill was appropriate for this building and didn't want to necessarily see those as a design element. So those were representationally removed from the design, but still we have the ability to put in a flat solar array on the second floor, which will be included in the design and the budgeting process. And it's not a guarantee that they will be included, but we'll certainly be looking for those funding opportunities and be evaluating how they're going to fit into the building budget and the long-term operating costs of the building.
Great. Thank you very much. It looks like Tron had a question.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to unmute him here. There you go, Tron.
Oh, you did. Thank you. So forgive me for showing up late. I had another commitment today at 5:30, so I was just able to join. So if you covered this, my apologies. I was curious where the bike parking was supposed to be located on the site plan. And then I wanted to follow up as well with what the conversation was with just solar and the flat roof. Was there any green roof concept? Because it says a commitment to at least the green building practices that were stated verbally. So I don't know what that really is in the packet for the Environmental Commission. So if you could kind of address my comment, is there plans for a green roof at all? And what were some of the verbal commitments? And obviously, where's the bike parking at? I see that you circled that. Awesome, thank you.
Right in front of Soma.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So yeah, I'm kind of curious about the green roof and then the verbal commitments.
Okay, so we don't have any specific plans for a green roof right now, though there is a roof deck on top of the second floor. The third floor has access to that roof deck, and I certainly think it would be appropriate to have container gardens in some capacity on that roof deck area. So we are introducing some plantings as part of that roof deck area. I think it'll improve it will bring some nature into the building, and it will make it a more pleasant space for the users there. In terms of doing a green roof over the third floor, we don't have plans for that at the moment. Those are very expensive. There's going to be a lot of money going into this building. I'm sure we'll be using a reflective roofing material to reduce the heat gain of the building and the urban heat island effect. In terms of implementing sustainability strategies, I have a long history with sustainable design. We're going to be carefully evaluating shading of the windows. We're adding a trellis at the first floor. Right now, it's, you just see it as this freestanding trellis. The idea is to grow a climbing vine over this trellis that is going to really help to shade the first floor. It is a western-facing building. It's been a real challenge because it is oriented to the west. It's a north-south orientation, and that's the front of the building, and we're required to have glazing on the front of the building through the zoning ordinance, and that's the side of the building that's really going to be getting a lot of sun. So we're going to have to be careful with our low-E coatings, and this trellis at the first level is there, and the intention is to shade the building. We're certainly going to be looking at tight thermal envelopes, good degree of insulation, efficient HVAC systems. We're looking to incorporate local materials, low embodied energy materials such as wood. The metal siding is a low embodied energy material in comparison to a lot of other materials. We're preserving the existing building, which is a huge green building strategy. We're maintaining a lot of impervious cover, and we're pervious cover, and we're using pervious pavings. So I could go on, but we're really, sustainability is something that you rake through the entire project, all the way from your site planning to the chemicals that you use for cleaning, to the toilets, being low flow toilets, to adding a shower so that people are encouraged to bike to work. And also having a coffee shop on the first floor so people don't have to travel long distances for a latte. So.
Thank you. All right, looks like I think Karen is next.
Yes, thank you. Eric, this is a question, sorry, going back to the plaza, I got a little lost. I heard Mr. Brown at the end say something about reasonable accommodation. So Eric, if you had to rewrite that condition on the recommendation, I think it was number 2, how would you now rewrite that? You mentioned maybe you should have written that differently.
Well, at the very least, I would add that, so it says the plaza area on the west side of the building shall be installed as shown on the submitted site plan. If we wanted to loosen that a little bit, we can say the plaza area on the west side of the building shall be shown in general as shown on the site plan. We can add that.
Yeah, so if I can comment on that, if that's okay, this is Jackie. I understand the desire to have flexibility. I do think all of the reasons that Eric listed about why he did not include the flexibility in the first place are valid, and we run into those all the time with actual development once we get past the site plan portion. So I don't think staff is not recommending that you loosen these. I think putting in the clarification that it's for the Western is fine, but making it be less specific about whether or not it has to meet the site plan isn't something we would recommend. But of course, if that's something you as the Plan Commission choose to do, then that's fine. Does that sound fair, Eric, to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then Israel, I think. Yeah, Israel, go ahead.
Right. So regarding the other green building practices, just to confirm, because you mentioned some of those about the tight thermal envelope and glazing and the use of materials with low embodied energy. So you were saying that this is more like an intent or more like a commitment?
That's probably for you, Lucas.
Yeah. I'm trying to, it seemed to have misplaced though. How is it worded currently by the Environmental Commission? I believe it's their intent to design the building, remodel with a tight thermal envelope. So I believe what you're voting on based on this memorandum is an intent. It's very hard to be specific about this, but a general intent to implement green building practices is the way that I read the memorandum from the Environmental Commission.
So we do not have, and this is Eric, we do not have all of those recommendations built into conditions of approval. So, you know, the conditions of approval that we have, the 5 that I have listed, are what the conditions of approval are. The EC has recommendations, but those are not specific conditions of approval.
The petitioner, was it Lucas speaking, I think? Could you clarify if it's your intent to do that?
Well, projects are collaborative. There are a lot of people involved, including the entire Kiln Collective. So for me to state that it's just my intent, I don't think would be appropriate. I think my intent as an architect in the project is to encourage green building practices at every level. And like I said, it's a very broad spectrum of potential strategies that are going to make this positively contribute to Bloomington's environmental stewardship. So yes, it is my intent. I believe it's the Kiln Collective's intent as well, but I would have to let them speak for themselves.
Does anyone from the Kiln Collective want to make that statement? Normally we might see other people in the audience, but I don't know. We're not operating under the same conditions. I'm going to presume silence means no.
Don or Craig, are you guys on? They were here.
Hey, there we are. I was muted, so I couldn't say anything. So sorry. Yeah, I would, you know, from the standpoint of the discussion, it is definitely our intent. I mean, what you have here, the Kiln Collective, I mean, to expand on what exactly the Kiln Collective is, it's a collection of Bloomington residents that own businesses. They're all going to be owner occupants of this building. And many, well, some of them currently work in the mill. Certainly, many of them are tech-related businesses. And so, you know, our intent, or we were initially drawn to this building because of the historical nature, obviously its location in the tech park. And all along, you know, our desire has been to take a building that was scheduled for demolition here a couple of years ago and retain it. And, you know, it's obviously also a building that was never intended to house people. It was always intended to house lumber, you know, thus the lack of windows and absolutely no amenities whatsoever for people as it stands. So, you know, our challenge here is to take a kiln for drying lumber and turn it into an office building. And so to the extent we can possibly do that, and obviously any construction that we do is going to meet all of the current codes and take advantage of the latest technologies in terms of building envelopes and you know, insulation and heating systems and cooling systems and the like. As Lucas mentioned, we did have solar panels initially on the roof. Those were, you know, met some objection as we went through the historical review, but, you know, our intent is to evaluate and incorporate as much as possible along the way. As with any sort of project like this, we have to balance out the return on investment of any, you know, we have to look at the solar panel costs or any other materials that we would consider. There's always a return on investment that has to be calculated because in the end, the building does have to support itself from a standpoint of being able to have the to at least break even. So, and that's really our goal. None of the Kiln Collective folks are really looking to, they're not viewing this as a retirement plan by any stretch. They just wanted to have a place for their businesses in downtown Bloomington, in a historic building, in a tech park, in the tech park. And so with that, I would just say each of the opportunities for green will be evaluated and used to the greatest extent possible.
Thank you. Israel, anything else on that topic? Are you? Okay. All right.
That should be good. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? I have a couple if nobody else has any.
I think Mr. Crowley may have a comment or question related to one of the issues that's been raised. Alex, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, so, I think just going back to this issue of the number 2, the recommendation, the condition number 2, I just wanted to raise a concern. I totally understand, Jackie and Eric, where you guys are coming from. We want to make sure that we are not losing the intent of the plaza, which is intended to create connectivity between Madison and the frontage of the building, right? So I think the intent of that is absolutely right, and I don't think there should be any flexibility on the intent of that connectivity, because without that, it could be a stretch of grass, and that would not really serve the purposes of, I think, what Eric's point was. What I would like to suggest to whether it's rewriting that or just somehow allowing for this. Right now, the site plan has a fairly crude, design. Not to disparage the design, but I think it was put in place mostly to demonstrate what is intended by it. And what I'd like to see, if that's possible, in condition 2, would be not to relieve the builders of a requirement to have an elegant plaza between the sidewalk and the front of the building, but to create a little bit more flexibility for them, so that if they decide that they want to maybe design it differently, while it still delivers what it's supposed to deliver, they do have that flexibility to make adjustments to the design. And I think if the plan commission or planning staff would be willing to do that, I think that might ultimately benefit us all, because it would not lock the developers into something that might not in the end be as good as something else that they would do that's slightly different from what they submitted, if that makes sense.
And may I add a comment here?
Yes, is that true?
Alex, thank you very much for that comment. I might object to the word crude, if you don't mind. And maybe suggest that it was more of a conceptual sketch of the intent, right? Right. And so, if Eric wants us to work with planning staff through the development of this site plan, which I'm sure we will be, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. But I agree with Alex. I would prefer not to be locked into this specific design as it's stated, or as it's shown.
This is Don. I do think the intent of what we're trying to accomplish there on the west side is, as you can see, it does include some trees. The intent was for those trees to be ones that theoretically were used in the kiln and by the Showers Brothers Furniture Factory. The intent, and one thing that we've been very supportive of after talking with folks about learning more about the history of the building as we've gone through this process, is to try to develop a walking trail from where the trains would arrive and unload the trees, and then they would dry, and then they'd be cut to rough dimensions, brought to the kiln and dried, and then as they were called out for building, they'd go to the dimension mill to get cut into specific sizes and just, walk people through that process. So the intent would be, as you walk down that sidewalk from 11th Street to the south, that's the beginning part of that process as things move from the trains to the kiln to the dimension mill. Those trees would serve the dual purpose of not only representing the types of woods that were used by the Showers Brothers factory, they'd also provide some nice solar relief to the building itself from that western sun. And well, I guess the third purpose, they provide some nice shade for the folks that are sitting in that area. And the idea is it's really a, fostering collaboration. It's a place for folks to sit and gather in small groups. So, whether, we want to reference that it's a space designed, a plaza, the intent is for, collaboration and gathering spaces of small groups. I think we have the large group areas already kind of covered by either the roof deck or the large plaza on the north side of the building. But, I think it's designed to be an area for not only allowing people to move through the area, but also to stop and linger in small groups in that area.
Thank you. Thanks. Looks like Tron, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I might be asking a common question is, there's something that you need, Eric, that could potentially replace condition 2 to kind of add some flexibility for the actual construction of the open space area, but it still provides you enough reassurance that they're going to be addressing your needs, or kind of instead of making them actually design it to that effect that they have presented today as more of a conceptual idea. So basically the question is there a way we could rephrase condition 2 to accommodate more flexibility for the developers, but still meet the intent that the city's trying to pursue?
So we can, so one thing I just want to point out is, what we're doing here today is approving a site plan. So when the petitioners come forward, this is not a preliminary planned unit development where they're like, hey, there's still stuff we're trying to figure out. This is the final site plan approval. This is when, no, we've locked everything in, we've nailed things down. This is what it's going to look like. This is where stuff's going to be. This is, one of the approvals where, everything should really be kind of nailed down at this stage. So we can, at staff level, we can always be somewhat flexible, in things, and we can build in some language here. We can say something to the effect of, the plaza area on the west side of the building shall conceptually be installed as shown. And then that will just still always fall on staff of how broad do we want to use the word conceptual. But, it's just, like I said, this is a stage of where we should have things locked in. Don't show it if you're not going to build it that way. So we can add the word conceptually into condition 2 to help appease some concerns. And we're always happy at staff level to work with people, to some degree. I just want to lock in overall design and connections that are being shown there. That's staff's concern.
Yeah. All right. I had a couple of questions. If nobody else, any other hands raised. All right. So let me rattle off a couple of these. First, I wonder if either Eric or the petitioner can clarify the west facing. In fact, this is the right rendering to have up for this question. I think it's labeled as black storefront. It's hard for me to tell what the first floor looks like windows is going to be. They're not windows though, are they? So that's one of my clarifying comments. What is that material?
Lucas, do you want to address that?
Yeah, sorry, just a second. Let me pull him back up here. Okay, Lucas, go ahead.
Yeah, so okay, The windows at the first floor in the masonry openings will be glazing, clear glazing. They will be divided based on this elevation in this grid form. And this was a long discussion with HPC on the arrangement of the glass. On the right side, you can see the doors, and what divides the glazing is going to be storefront. It will be 2-inch by 4 or 6-inch aluminum, black aluminum storefront. I think very similar to what you would see at the mill.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
And the perspective renderings can be a little misleading because we're showing how the trellis would actually shade those windows as well.
Okay, that's why they look that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And then the other, you've mentioned the Historic Preservation Committee a couple times and just indicated that I mean, it clearly sounds like there's been a lot of back and forth and cooperation, but I was surprised not to see something in the packet that was specifically from the Historic Preservation Committee. Is there a reason that there was no specific comment or approval or words from them?
So the petitioners did get a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission. So there was no memo per se from the HPC, but the HPC approved the design, and that is the same design that is before the Planning Commission today.
Okay, good. I want to make sure that's clear to everybody too. Okay, good. And then the last question is, how much of the old building is being retained in this?
Aside from losing some masonry for windows and doors, 100% there is this weird little interstitial space between the powerhouse, which is along the alley, and the kilns on the Madison Street side, which is basically consists of some metal pipe and some tin roofing. It's over a utility sort of trench. We're taking that out. Obviously, it's has no historic significance, but all the original masonry will be restored and maintained, with the exception of the masonry that's being removed for windows and doors.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. All right. I don't know if there's any other question. It looks like Karen, maybe.
I do have one more question. I wasn't looking at the black storefront until you asked about it, Jillian. So in the packet, what we see on page 27 is probably not actually what it's going to look like. It's going to look more like what Eric has pulled up on the screen, because page 27 doesn't look like that. The windows are all different. So is that just a mistake, or? It's
Karen, I apologize. I don't have the packet open in front of me.
Okay.
Okay, so you're talking about the eastern view showing the mill and the buildings in the background.
Yeah, it looks like a photograph.
Yeah. Okay, so that was an earlier rendition.
Okay, that's fine.
And it was
All right.
really primarily to show the height differences between the building and the surrounding buildings and the relationship to the mill.
Okay, great. So that's really not like on that slide you have, Eric. That really isn't like, that's the proposed rendering, but not really, because all the windows are different and all this.
Yeah, that's more of a massing
Okay.
kind of model.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Just want to clarify. Thanks.
Yeah, we went through 3 design iterations with HPC.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you, yeah. Thank you.
And I just realized I had one more question. Speaking of, the variation in renderings here. The one rendering that we were focused on earlier, where it shows the side facing 11th Street, and there was a conversation about the variation in grade there. And I wonder, what is that height? I mean, on the one rendering, not this one, but the one that we had up earlier, it looked pretty serious. In fact, it looks like there's a proposed railing there almost. Is that correct? One more. Yeah, I guess you can see it both. Yeah, this one in particular.
Yeah, I think you can hear me now. there is an existing retaining wall between 11th Street and the building, like Eric was pointing out. So as you come down to the intersection of Madison 11th and 11th at the bottom of this image, it grades out. And then as you move up 11 toward College, it starts to drop off, and there's currently a chain link fence on top of that retaining wall. And it's a little bit tight between a utility pole and that retaining wall, which is one of the conditions here is that we allow enough space between the utility pole and the edge of the retaining wall, and then we put up this new guardrail on top of the retaining wall. And then there's this larger retaining wall on the alley side as well. What's not shown in this particular view would be some stairs that would connect the alley down to this plaza and the coffee shop, mainly for access to the dumpsters, which would be in the alley behind the mill.
Great. Okay, so it looks like this is adding some safety to that space as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay. All right. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions for petitioner or staff. Doesn't look like any hands are raised. All right. Are we ready to go to any public comment?
Yeah, if you are on the Zoom and you want to do a public comment, you need to put your hand up on your little icon. I don't see any Jillian. Yeah.
No, and are we still Facebook Live?
We are still on Facebook, and there are none at this time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I hesitate to move on without any public comment, but that looks to be the state of our existence right now.
Yeah.
So, okay. And all right, so we're back to commission for any comments or questions. Really comments at this point. Or motion. Up, Susan.
There's Susan.
I feel very good about this. I think it's going to be a welcome addition to the tech park. It's very sleek, very industrial looking, as in keeping with the whole format. And this is a site plan approval. And so I didn't have too many questions. I thought it was well presented. And so I would be willing to support it with the 5 conditions. And I think that I see that there's some tweaking of the language of number 2, as we've fairly thoroughly discussed. And so I'll look forward to see that final wording. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Susan. Anybody else? Comments?
Don't see anybody else.
Israel.
Oh wait, here's Israel. Just a sec. Yeah.
Great.
Israel, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also in favor, and I'm glad to hear about the best intentions to follow the environmental recommendations. So I also recommend to commit to at least the green building practices that were stated verbally, as it was mentioned in the Environmental Commission.
Karen, go ahead.
Yep, thanks. I am in favor of this. I think it's done really well. I think it's going to be a really great improvement to a particular lot that has needed some love, and it's going to add a lot to a very public parcel in Bloomington. So with that said, the site plan is the site plan, and that is what we have before us. So I do understand needing the flexibility about the plaza, but at the end of the day, just as our role, I know some of these people. I know Don Weiler, and he's great and does really good work. And other folks maybe who are like owners or so. But at the end of the day, we have this responsibility to the public, and the public is to review the site plans. So if we don't look at the plaza, then I need to be told, what am I supposed to look at? Because the plaza is part of what we're supposed to review. So I just want to say, that I do understand the need for flexibility, and I do like the language there about conceptually. I think that makes sense. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the site plan. That's what we're charged to do, and that includes everything within those boundaries, which is the plaza. So I will definitely vote in favor of it. I think it's great. I think it looks really good, and I'm excited to have that property developed. Thanks.
Great. Beth?
Go
Yeah, I
ahead,
just
Beth.
want to say the same. I think that it's very exciting. It looks terrific. And I think that it does a great job with that space. And I feel confident that between staff and the builders, they'll figure out a way to make that plaza work in the way that we've been discussing, and that makes sense and that reflects what was proposed, but with the kind of flexibility that will, make it work out in the end. So yeah, I think this is very exciting. I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you. And Flavia, it looks like.
Yep.
Yes, I am also in favor of this project. I have been in a historic preservation commission before, and I know that they went through a very extensive grueling process with the design. So I know that this they have looked at every intent to preserve as much as they can of this historical site. And I'm also very intrigued and interested in what they're doing in terms of turning a place where was a storage for wood into a living space for businesses. So I think this is a very elegant solution. I also agree and understood what Dawn Weiler has said about the West Side Plaza. And the intent of what they want to do, which is to create a pedestrian connection with 11th Street, but also a place where people gather and a place where it can be a place of collaboration and people can sit and have small group meetings. And I think he explained that very well, what the intent of and the concept of that plaza is supposed to be. We've seen the trellis, we've seen the sidewalks. They might move things a little bit, but I think the intent and the concept has been very clear in what they explained. And I am comfortable with that, and I will be voting in favor of this project. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Looks like nobody else, so I'll just offer my similar comments to the other commissioners. I think this is a really interesting redesign of this historic site. I am definitely, I share staff's concern about wanting to approve a site plan, and I'm particularly concerned about the plaza area. I wish it could have been designed a little bit more beyond this real conceptual rendering so that we get a better feel for it. But I feel like through this discussion, I understand the purpose and what will be installed, and I have confidence the staff will assure that it achieves the pedestrian access and the friendliness and the gathering space that the space is being designed for. So I think the addition of, or the clarification on number 2 on the recommendation is helpful to assure that we get what is really necessary for that space. I think the requested deviations to expand vertically and for the stair tower makes sense. For this, that's a minimal difference and obviously in keeping with the rest of the buildings in terms of scale and dimension. So that doesn't bother me at all. I would like to see more green building. I would have liked to have seen more commitment. But again, I appreciate what both the builders and the petitioners have committed to verbally through this conversation tonight. So I hope that all happens, and I'm excited for the renewal of this incredible space. So I'll be supporting it as well. So now we do need an official motion if there isn't any other comment.
I'd like to motion approval of SP-07-20 with the 5 conditions of approval as listed.
Great.
Second.
Okay, Beth has seconded. Karen has motioned. All right. All right.
Okay. Des, do you want to go ahead and do the roll call?
Yes, I can. Burrell,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Schonkweiler,
Yes.
St. John,
Yes.
Herrera, sorry, is Herrera there?
Hold on just a sec. He should be, but maybe he's not. Hold on. Actually, no, he's not there, Des.
Oh, okay. Sandberg,
Yes.
I bet he just lost it, can
Yeah, he may have just lost. That's fine. So motion passes 7-0.
I have 6.
Is that right? Or 6-0?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, petitioners, and thank you, commissioners and staff in particular for making this possible. So really appreciate everybody's forbearance and our skill at actually muting and unmuting ourselves. So good job, Jackie, for doing all this, and crew.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, and we appreciate the public's tolerance of this. I know it's not ideal, but one that we'll have to live with for a little while here. So hopefully we'll be able to continue to get some more public comment. I certainly wouldn't want to sacrifice public input, but we are as commissioners serving as the public in this regard too. So let's hope we can represent people's views. But I think that might be it for us tonight.
Yep.
So we can be adjourned.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.